Hello everybody, welcome to Friends from the Future number 3. Today we'll be talking to Jason Minsky, conceptual artist from London, and an old friend who I met at the glass-making super mecca of Pilchuck in the summer of 1998. Pilchuck is a summer program in the hills of Seattle, Washington, where talented and untalented glassblowers and artists get together for summer workshops in hot and cold glass making, neon, and other things. And when I met Jason, he was busy bending neon tubes into Nike logos, which he then hung on trees in the dense primordial Washington forest, took photos of it, and sold them to British galleries. He has a razor-sharp sense of humor, which I'd say is a truly valuable asset to possess as we really get Corona rolling. So now we've been in Hanoi, Vietnam with Benji Rich, Maplewood, New Jersey with Brian Rambolo. That's funny to put it that way. It's almost like New Jersey is its own country unto itself, which in a way I think we're seeing in the disputes between American governors and Donald Trump, it very arguably is. And today we'll be talking with Jason from his home in Dublin, Ireland. Jason moved, I believe, 2 years ago to Ireland with his Irish wife, Pauline, and their 7-year-old son, Oisín. Jason describes their move as a kind of homecoming for Pauline and himself as a Brexit refugee. The Prime Minister of Ireland, Leo Varadkar, is a former medical doctor, general practitioner, and has gone back to helping the Irish Health Service as a doctor for one session a week during the pandemic. And I discussed this idea with Jason during our talk. Can you imagine if the United States was run by a medical doctor right now? I mean, just think about that. Or it got me thinking, if elected officials, what if they were forced as part of their job description to actively work for a part of their week in an institution that was directly tied to the populace's well-being? That's kind of a funny question considering what these people are supposed to be doing. But imagine if the president had to also be a school teacher, and not just a professor who gives long lectures, but more like a high school guidance counselor who had kids facing real challenges, and that the president had to actively and personally help those kids out a few days a week, and his job depended on it, or her job. What if every high-level job had a mandatory community-linked responsibility that had to show results? But back to Jason. So Jason's art can be seen at many different galleries and institutions, mostly around the UK, and on his website, minskyart.com. My favorite piece of Jason's dates back about 10 years when he was an artist in residence for the Leeds Rugby Foundation from 2007 to 2008. The club had a signature day when fans could bring memorabilia for their favorite players to sign. So Jason printed up a line of black markers that he himself signed, like on the outside, on the casing of the marker. So he signed it as an art piece and then distributed these markers to the players to use when they were signing the memorabilia for the fans. So that day, thousands of Leeds supporters went home with a ball, a cap, a shirt, whatever, that had been existentially co-signed by their heroes and Jason Minsky, artist, trickster, and currently in residence in Walkinstown, Dublin 12, Ireland. So please have a look at Jason's fantastic body of work on his website, minskyart.com, and I hope you enjoy my talk with him here on Friends from the Future number 3.
Look around in the sound, on the ground, losing pounds.
So I'm on the line here with Jason Minsky. Hi, Jason.
Good morning, Joey.
All right, now Jason, the Minsk as we call you. Those who know you, we call you the Minsk.
No one calls me Minsk, but I'll go with it.
I thought you call yourself Minsk.
Do you know where that came from?
No.
North America, and it was on Camp Monroe.
When you were
upstate New York. I was a camp counselor
in the summertime. One of those British camp counselors who pretend to take care of children in the North American summers.
Do you know what? My memories of that were all related to scale of human beings. You know, you think about Le Corbusier the architect, and you think of his funny drawing of the
Le
of the man.
Corbusier? Is that who?
Corbusier. Here we go. And now you've been in France for 10 minutes. You're the expert on how to say his name. Yeah, Corby, as we call him. He did that. Basically, you're all a different scale. When I got to Camp America, it was like teenagers, their clothes. You know, when they were throwing stuff out at the end, it was like a 14-year-old's clothes. 12-year-olds fitted me, a T-shirt. It was crazy.
Watch it.
All right.
So now you're originally from London, right? You were born in London?
Correct.
And then you lived for a long time in Manchester, around Manchester?
I did, I studied up there. I did my degree in 3D design and then moved back to London. I moved around the UK working in various places, various artists and designers.
So you're from London, you lived in
From
Manchester,
London.
but now currently you're in Dublin.
I am in Europe. I am in the capital of Ireland, Ayr. I'm in Dublin.
And so that's where you live now?
It is, with my Irish wife.
Pauline.
That was my way in. Pauline, who used to be Maguire, who is now Minsky. And our 7-year-old boy, Oisin.
Don't rub yourself there too much. I hear rubbing.
Sorry, that was my heel. Just to clarify, my foot. Apologies.
Okay, so what's the situation with the coronavirus? So you were traveling, but when this was all starting to break out, but because our respective countries, I saw you came here to France. You were in England before that. You were in London,
correct.
Right?
I was in London. Yeah.
None of our countries were taking it really seriously yet. It hadn't, it was clear that it was about to become a problem, but especially the UK, which you were passing through, was playing it down as much as possible. Yeah,
I was, the reason I was traveling and I was in London and then Paris was because my oldest son is in a band, the Mighty Working Men's Club, and was...
Working Men's Club, not the Mighty Working Men's Club.
No, just Working Men's Club.
And what's his name?
Sydney Minsky Sargent.
And I gotta say, everybody's got to check that out. I have to somehow put a link to that into this also, because it's really great music. And we went to see one of his concerts here in Paris when you were here.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic live band. And so I was catching up with him and also various friends in London and your good self and your family in Paris. And I can say that obviously my wife was quite concerned because she has a health condition about me travelling. We did discuss whether I would go or not. So I think they were taking it a little bit more.
She has a lung-related condition,
yeah,
right?
she has a thing called sarcoidosis. I did have the discussion whether I would go or even go on to Paris from London. And we decided it would be fine. But obviously to be very careful.
Right, you were one of the first people that I saw having a mask and having handy wipes and things like that.
There was definitely a vibe. There was a slightly strange vibe, but shops were still open, pubs were still open, and obviously the gig went ahead. And
your son's gig,
my son's gig at the 100 Club. He was supporting a really good Irish band called the Murder Capital, who were meant to be playing actually in South by Southwest, which I think was also cancelled. Mm-hmm. And then obviously I went on to Eurostar and came over to see you. And
came over to stay at our apartment.
Stay at your
and so that
apartment.
we could infect each other as thoroughly as possible.
Well, it's all good.
I mean, not as thoroughly as we could have, but you were wearing a mask, and I was thinking about it. Once the shit hit the fan and it became really serious, and I had a few days where I was just reading the news and kind of having heart palpitations, and I remembered seeing you sent me a photo of you in London with an army surplus gas mask pretending to drink a beer. And I just thought, Is this going to be one of those pictures? I think you should make some sort of conceptual artwork about that, especially if we all end up dead.
Well, for the mass audience, it won't be around. But I'm just actually watching my neighbour across the road, bless her. She must be in her 80s. She's called Marie. And she's getting her lawnmower out. And I think fair play to you. I like your style. She's hung a massive Irish tricolour out the top window,
As
possibly
a flag.
for Easter.
A flag, I
as
think,
a flag,
for
flag of Ireland.
American English speakers.
Yes, a flag. And she's
Tricolor.
plugging in her electric lawnmower. She's about to mow her tiny front lawn. I like that. Keep things tidy.
Got to keep
her.
occupied. Keep the
This
exercise.
This is it. This is the new reality.
Yeah, because you're
human beings
kind of in a little bit like, what are you? You're a little bit outside of the center of Dublin, a little
We're
like in a house, a little suburban.
We're about a 15-minute drive from the absolute city centre. So we're probably on the edge of the suburbs rather than being in the heartland of it.
Okay.
And
but so you've got a backyard, and there's a backyard next to you,
nice
backyard
garden.
next to you. All sides,
we're
I guess.
What you call a terrace house. So we've got a house on either side and houses opposite. And it's a quiet street. There's a library on our street. There's parks around.
And your son's 7
nice.
years old, so he's using that backyard a lot.
Oh yeah, a lot. Oh yeah, we had a mini Olympics the other day, including the torch procession, live music. We had a St Patrick's Day parade involving all his toys and teddy bears watching. One of the neighbours who's an opera singer was singing. And we had an audience of our neighbours on the other side. But
and you guys have like cocktails
trying to be
and
creative.
Stuff?
Didn't have cocktails. For
I mean,
that,
with the neighbours, I thought I saw you like toasting
we've had
each other
we've had
over the fence.
a pint. Yeah, I think we're going to be having a Guinness later today over the fence.
That's not a cocktail, I realize.
No, but pint of stout.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, talk about your trip, that you took to see your son's band, and then suddenly kind of found yourself in the middle of the outbreak, and then when you got back to Ireland, you had to quarantine yourself from your wife, more or less, right?
That's exactly it. In fact, I did pretty well, obviously, bar the French greeting to you and
Mario,
your
Nina,
missus
and our cat.
Yeah,
you might have
and
infected the cat.
Yeah, and I didn't even stroke your cat. I can't believe I'm getting blamed for cat
you're
infections.
allergic. You're allergic. I'm blaming you for the cat, and he was the one in your room.
But basically, I did very well on the trip. My wife would have been proud of me, except one rookie error on the way home, where I had a seat in between myself and the next passenger. She was an elderly Irish lady, and she was very chatty. And you know me, I like a chat. And it began because we were both hand sanitizing the tray, the arms, and everything. So obviously, she decided that there was a bond between us.
And she needed to spit in your face for the rest of the way?
Yeah, basically, all the good work that we'd both done in terms of sanitizing went out the window by us talking for about an hour on the plane.
I know, it's pretty amazing. You realize when you do get into any kind of animated conversation with anybody, the amount, I mean... I always notice that in business meetings when people spit on each other's face and either they acknowledge it or not. But recently I've noticed that, because having to explain a few things that are important to people, like I was working on that thing with the check masks and I was talking to an engineer and neither one of us had masks on and it was not good.
No.
Yeah. That was before I started wearing a mask every day, because it hasn't.
Are you doing that? Are you wearing a mask every day?
Yeah. Now,
okay. I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? Because that mask that you saw me in that photo, that was actually a cycling mask from when I was at the Royal College, because of the pollution in London to do with exhaust fumes from buses and cars. Mm-hmm. But actually, it's a pretty good mask. I do actually have a really good mask, like a proper. Builder's mask, respirator mask, which I think would just scare too many people if I was wearing that. So when I went to Lidl the other day for the first time to do a really big shop, because we've been doing Tesco online.
Lidl's a big supermarket over here in Europe. Yeah,
exactly, big supermarket shop. Fair play to them, they have lines taped out before you can even go in at 2 meter gaps. So you have to wait there with your shopping trolley. And then you're ushered into the store. I had my mask on. I had blue plastic gloves on. and a sign in lipstick on my forehead that said "Stay the fuck away." No, I didn't. I thought I wouldn't do that because that was a little bit aggressive. And Irish people, on the whole, are very friendly.
That's true.
And I think actually culturally, that's a hard thing for this country because they are, on the whole, really listening to the government's advice, which is to stay home and only go out for shopping, medicine, or visit an elderly relative, or if
at least the government is giving advice.
They're giving advice. They've been very straight. In fact, the Taoiseach, the Irish Prime Minister, is going back to work in his previous profession a day a week as a doctor. So it's quite impressive, I think. But the point is, so
you got back, and after spending the time on the train with this nice old lady who you were talking to closely, airplane, then you're back in your house and have to deal, and the crisis is really coming to a head in many different countries, especially the ones that you were just visiting.
My wife is looking at me like I could be the person who could.
Okay, so we got cut off just now. But now, Jason, you've relocated to your car so that you can isolate yourself from your 7-year-old, so we can talk.
I've self-isolated from my wife and my 7-year-old. I'm now sitting in the passenger front seat of a VW Golf TSI 1.4, which we're hoping to sell quite soon.
Is this a place you found yourself in a lot recently?
No, but I think I might. I tell you.
It's calm.
I might buy. I'm considering buying. I've just thought of it now. A camper van, houseboat without an engine, anything that I could potentially lie down in and hide.
Just to put it in the driveway, and that'll be your office.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I've got a lower view now of Mari mowing the lawn. It's kind of like hoovering, isn't it, when it's that small?
Your next door neighbor, right?
The neighbor opposite, yeah, bless her. She came at us quite early on in coronavirus with sweets for Asheen, and the next day I had to chalk on. This is a bit embarrassing. I chalked on our front path the 2 meter distance to basically say, "Stay the fuck back." Because as she came closer, I went further into the house with the front door open. So she's virtually in the house, and I'm virtually in the kitchen.
Yeah, I got a story out like that, which is not, but it doesn't have a funny ending.
Okay.
Actually, so you were just here at our apartment, so you picture the landing outside of our front door. There are two other. It's a small landing with the elevator stops there. It's a tiny staircase, old Parisian staircase. There's two doors, two apartments across from ours, and one of them are two guys, to a gay couple, and we're friendly, and one of the guys was I observed as this was all starting, he was not keeping distances, and people in our courtyard were having tea together and sort of acting like fuck it a little bit. He's now in the hospital. He's been there for a week. He's been on a ventilator. Apparently he's getting better, which I'm very happy about. I just talked to his boyfriend, who, I think everybody's had little ups and downs of like people getting normally sick or maybe having it and it not being pronounced, like you had, scratchy throat and things. So it seemed like that at first, but I just found out yesterday that the guy's in the hospital, and just that it's one of those things where everyone, more and more people I talk to, is sort of somebody has either someone in the hospital or someone who died.
Oh dear. That's
but you have that too, right?
Yeah.
Uncles.
There's been some elderly relatives who have passed away. Yeah,
that's what I mean. More elderly.
That wasn't. I don't think that was corona related. Okay. I mean, my uncle was 99, so.
Oh wow.
That's a good innings. In fact, he was 99 and a half exactly.
Wow.
Which fits in with him because he was quite an accurate guy in a lovely way. He did things neatly. It was the last of the East End Minskys, East End of London.
Before moving to 3 digits, he decided it had been enough.
Yeah, I think he wanted to go for a few years. He was bored, and he was quite a party animal. He was. You would have met him at our wedding. He would have been the last one on the dance floor with his 80-something-year-old girlfriend, who was quite glamorous. Yeah, but yeah, no. So that's been interesting because obviously he was my dad's younger brother, and I would have wanted to have been at the funeral, as we would have all wanted to have attended to celebrate his life. And being of the Jewish faith, not practicing, obviously, I rehearse a little bit now and then, but we had to do the online shiva, which was through Zoom, which is very strange. And
I'm sure.
Literally did 3 of them in a row for different people. And yeah, it was kind of funny. It was like being in a Woody Allen film, like old Jews and technology. Well, not just old ones. I'm 51, although my son would say I was old. But yeah, no, it was, you know what? It was actually quite pleasant, and it was nice to hear different people's stories about various relatives, and that was sweet.
Yeah.
Although you always get one person who's like, this isn't religious enough. This has not been done properly. And then you kind of think,
Do they say it during the Zoom Shiva?
No, they usually send a message to the person who's lost the relative afterwards.
That they'd done it incorrectly?
And offer advice on how they should be mourning. And I just sort of think, this is everything I hate about religion, and they're missing the point somewhat.
I hope they sent the message via Snapchat.
I just send a picture of my genitals back to them and say, how's that for the correct conduct? God bless you.
That's actually kind of applicable for lots of different situations at this point.
Yeah. I just, for the record, I've never, ever taken a photo or sent a photo of my genitals. For many obvious reasons. Why? Why would you know? But
I hope there's a conceptual piece coming soon about this.
Wow,
though.
yes.
Because probably a lot to say on that subject.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't really fulfill into my remit, but
so
I'm sure.
So let's go back to you're back. So then you're back in front of your wife.
I'm self-isolating, of.
You're in the situation where, because you've taken this trip, and actually it doesn't even have to be because of the trip. I mean, she has an underlying, condition, as they say.
Yeah.
And so she has to be really careful in general anyway. And then now there's this thing that attacks people who have that kind of condition. So of course you want to be as careful as possible, but then you're in territory where it's sort of like, if I kiss my wife, I might kill her.
I mean, that is really dark, isn't it? I mean, that is in itself is just, thinking about that you want to express your love and affection for the person, one of the people you most love in your life, and obviously the other two are my 2 children, and you can't do that because you could be giving them a death sentence. So we learnt to do backward hugs, which were quite funny, and I'd kiss her neck. And
that's okay?
And I think so. I don't think you're going to, just giving her a peck on the neck and just hugging each other from, me just giving her a hug. Yeah, I mean, do you know, without getting into the really heavy stuff, watching, Pauline's an amazing woman, and I think the analogy of the kind of swan, elegant above the water and underneath the kind of feet paddling, going crazy, was a little bit how she was on the exterior because of having a 7-year-old son around us all the time.
Yeah,
she was having to project an exterior of calm and everything's going to be okay, because obviously he was picking up on it. He couldn't see his friends, and school was closed. And on the inside, she's thinking and planning. We made wills when we got back. When
you got back?
Yeah, immediately. We went to the solicitor and made our wills. She's writing birthday cards for the future for our son in case she's not there. Whoa. And stuff like that. I mean, that's heavy.
Whoa.
And very, very, So, envelopes we both put envelopes together for her sisters to be guardians, anything like that.
That's really organized.
Organised and terribly tragic.
Yeah.
You know, there's no, you know me, I like to make a joke about a lot of things, and I couldn't find any humour in any of that shit.
But at the same time, a lot of people would never do that. You know, they would never have the foresight to do that.
Yeah.
Or the calm to put it together.
Yeah, and needing the time to do it, and obviously an emotional roller coaster for her. And I think actually we're entering another dangerous phase now, because people are getting used to it.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I was watching the news. I do that weird thing. I don't know if you do it as an American living in another country, as a British person living in Ireland, even though it's so close and have a shared language mostly. I end up watching the UK news, and then I'll watch the Irish news, and there's reports in the paper that there was something crazy like 660 street parties just in Manchester last weekend, some including a bouncy castle and a DJ.
Really?
And you're just thinking, these people are not taking it seriously.
Wow.
They're just seeing it as holiday time, you know. And
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
yeah, stuff like that's happening. I mean, it's hard for teenagers, isn't it? And just generally, well, it's hard for everyone, but I think...
I was wondering about that. I was, because I just know, you know, I know what I see in the neighborhood around us, and then I know what I see in Le Monde and the New York Times and the Guardian. But, you know, it's kind of surface, bigger issues, not as much. And the French politicians who, you know, when they decide to communicate with the public, which in general is not very often, they choose to berate the public about how they're not doing things, they're not being as careful as they should be, when they don't go on TV to talk about all of the health equipment that's missing, you know, that no one has ordered for the last 15, 20 years. That's why they don't have masks and everything. But they do go on television or issue press releases to, I don't know if we talked about this, but 2 days ago, jogging was made illegal here from.
Oh yes, we did. Yeah,
10 in the morning till 7. It's very strange.
It's crazy, very strange.
But I was wondering, in other places, are there, you know, younger people who don't really know, don't really care? They you know, I'm sure a certain lot of younger person, and there's a lot of them. I just think they probably just don't realize the gravity of the situation, and probably life goes on somewhat normally.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard, isn't it? If you think back to when we were teenagers and how we would behave, and I guess also there's that thought that you're growing, and you're, you know, physically and mentally, and you feel like you're you know, nothing's going to touch you. You can do anything. I mean, some of the things I got up to as a youngster were crazy.
Yeah.
And I suppose the responsibility of then you get older and you maybe have a family, or you think about your older relatives and loved ones and friends, and different things take over. I mean,
don't you think that has something to do with our societies, though? Also, you grew up in England. I grew up in America. I think there's a kind of shared, it's different, but I think there's a kind of shared Anglo-Saxon idea of the individual, and like, fuck it, I'm just going to do what I want. And there's a kind of, it's looked positively upon that, I think.
I think that's a really interesting, interesting point you make, and I think that is different in Ireland, because I think Ireland as a society are really doing well on this social distancing. You know, it's hard for me to, I'm talking about a whole country and I'm only in a tiny part of it, and obviously staying within my 2-mile zone that I'm allowed to exercise in. But from
here it's 1 kilometer. Well, okay, I guess that's almost the same thing. Sorry.
But anecdotally and also what I'm reading and seeing in the news, I would say that people are really taking it on board, and I think that's because it's a small country. I mean, including the north, it's no more than 5 million people. I mean, London's 12 million, and there's always that. It's a very friendly society and a very it's very based around family, and I think that's probably because on the whole it's a Catholic country. And yeah, I mean, I don't mean that in terms of in terms of that it's a really religious country. I just mean that culturally it is a Catholic country, even though that's a religion. I mean that a lot of people aren't as. I think the older generation are the ones who are more or are still more practicing in terms of religion, but I think just the values of the good values within religions in this country have certainly trickled down still, and family and worrying and looking after people are still an important thing.
Yeah, well, it's
even amongst friendship groups. And because it's such a small country, in fact, funnily enough, another American, a New Yorker I met in this little bookshop when we were living in a one-bed flat last year, which, God, thank God we've got the house now, because that was absolutely tiny. I mean, it was half the size of your flat. And this little bookshop around the corner from there, when I had recently arrived to live in Dublin, he actually said, I said, "Oh, have you got any tips about life in Ireland?" He said, "Don't piss anyone off." I said, "Well, I try not to in life generally, but why are you saying that specifically about Ireland?" In Dublin, he goes, "It's such a small country, you will bump into them again in 2 weeks." And it's absolutely right. I could spend 10 years in London and not bump into someone I went to school with.
Right.
And
yeah, but it's funny because your point about it being a Catholic country and kind of family based and small, so those all combine to give it a kind of a feeling, a social network, between people, and it's something that I've noticed in the Czech Republic. If you contrast, the Czech Republic is very small. In most European news, it doesn't even figure. People don't know what's going on there. Because I lived there for 8 years, I have a connection to it, and so I've been watching how they have dealt with it, and they've dealt really well with the public distancing. It's really under control. They didn't have as many cases for sure, but and it's funny because they're religion as a result of communism, and if there was anything, it was Protestantism before the communists arrived. It's not a religious country at all. It's and so
secular.
It's secular. Thank you. It's a good part about trying to talk fast while doing this. I realized just how many gaping holes there are in my general vocabulary and my brain's ability to spit out anything. But what they do have is some sort of sense of social cohesion.
Yes. Well, I think that exists here as well. I mean, you're always going to get the odd person who doesn't give a toss, and
right.
The sort of person who has a dog and doesn't pick up the dog shit and
wants to punch you in the face about it.
Yeah, exactly. But on the whole, I mean, I think a great example is when we bought this house, the lady across the road, Maria, who's sweeping up her front garden at the moment, her yard, as you would call
update.
Well, no, because I'm watching her work. I'm thinking she's very efficient, although I think she's missed a few weeds by the gate. But
has she seen you sitting in the car by yourself?
I don't think so. But I'll tell you what else is going on because of the amount of people who are online all the time now.
Yeah.
They've lowered the bandwidth, if I've gotten that right technically.
Yes, I believe so, everywhere, yeah.
Plus, you've also got these numpties who think that coronavirus is spread via 5G masts,
right? And
they've been burning them down in various countries and cities.
This is an incredible thing, I have to say. Yeah, we were talking about this the other day on the phone. Just the conspiracy theorists. I kind of identify with them because I think there's science fiction, creative thought at work there, or just kind of associative. Well, there are those towers. They're weird looking. I'm afraid for my body, and lots of things are happening that no one tells me about that it's bad for me. There's this new threat. It's big. It's on the horizon. King Kong might climb up it. That's probably where it's coming from. Let's go destroy it.
Yeah. It's brilliant. It all makes sense, obviously.
I like those leaps of, conclusions.
Yeah. No, it's genius. But so social distancing. In our house, Go on, sorry.
I want to just because maybe to start wrapping up a little bit, even though we have a ton more to talk about, but we can do it again at another time.
What about the test? Do you want to talk about my test?
Yes, let's talk about the test, and let's talk about ideas that you might have for ways that this could go in a positive direction, or what can we do with this, and also as people who are artists and have nothing to do necessarily with politics, do you have any ideas for what we can how we can think about it?
Okay,
so test and all that.
Okay, fine, all right. So the test, first of all, because the cough wasn't going, I contacted my doctor, and I only had one of the symptoms. But she said, okay, I'm going to put you down for a test because of who you live with. And she sent me some antibiotics because we thought it was a chest infection. They were for about a week. And
right, because you developed a cough when you got back.
I had a cough and it wasn't really going, and it was a bit phlegmy. And cut a long story short, they kind of worked, but the cough was still sort of there in the mornings and the evenings. Anyway, then I was listed for a test, so I had the message saying you're going to get a test. Then the World Health Organization changed their rules, and if you only had one symptom, you couldn't have your test. So then my test was cancelled. So then Pauline got in touch. Suddenly we both got a new message saying we're both getting a test, and then we had to wait, and it wasn't like 3 days because obviously it's a huge amount of people. I think it was like 50,000 people waiting for a test.
Wow.
And then after about 10 days, we got the message that we were having the test, and went down into town. Obviously, we had to take our son.
This message is all coming from the central
text message,
but this is the Central Irish Health Authority.
Exactly, the HSE. Very simple, clear message telling you the time. There's a 5-minute window between Pauline's test and my test, so this is a problem because it's who's going to look after a 7-year-old, and we're all gloved up and masked up. Well, can you hear me?
Your kid can't be with you during the test?
Well, no, and we don't really want to take him into this, what they've set up as a temporary...
Right,
Well, no, it was very, very... Everyone's kept apart, but it was basically like a MASH unit.
Did you chain him to a post outside?
Well, the soldier, because it was literally run by soldiers, said, "I'll just leave him at the end," said to Pauline. Now, this is a very good mother. She's not going to leave a 7-year-old pretty much next to the River Liffey at the end of an army tent with no one looking after him because I'm either in there and she's also in there. So they moved her test. This is the Irish way. You give them a bit of chat and they're like, yeah, come in now, it's fine, because we were early. So they tested Pauline. They
didn't just give you a pair of handcuffs. Like in America, they just give you a couple of zip ties and they'd be like,
they were fine.
There's a curb.
So she looked after Asheen. She came out and then I went in. And you're taken through, you write down your name, they check who you are, your address, who your doctor is. Then you go through to the next tent, sit you down, they check your details again, different person, this time obviously a medic. So I took my information and they check that again when you go into the next tent where the doctors are. You've got your mask on. They ask you, are you there?
Is that me? My message coming in?
Yeah, that was your message going on.
Okay, say it again.
So you've walked through what is ostensibly a MASH unit next to the River Liffey, centre of Dublin, and it's a freezing cold Sunday morning, and you've given your information, you walk through to the next tent, you've got a mask on that they've issued you with. They ask you to remove the mask, blow your nose to clean your nasal passages, put the mask back on, then open your mouth. They swab the back of your mouth. That goes to the person sitting at the desk. They put that away. And then can you hear me?
Yeah.
Then they take out what is ostensibly, looks like a long
pipe cleaner,
cotton bud that you'd put in your ear.
Yeah.
And shove it, Q-tip as you would call it. They shove it so far up your nostril that it's virtually scratching your brain. Take that out after saying, "Oh, I hope that wasn't too uncomfortable," and that's it. And then you go out the other end of the tent. They give you a piece of paper, which ironically Pauline had the whole thing, which was an apron, a mask, etc. They must have run out. I just got the piece of paper, and you're off. And then we waited about 10 days for those results, which came as a text message saying negative.
Okay.
You haven't got it.
So that must have been a pretty big relief for you both.
That was a relief. Nice timing. That was a relief, although there's still that thought that
maybe they got it wrong.
And also whether that test is 100%. I mean, I think the other thing is that you've got to be careful, haven't you? Because it's a relief, and then you don't want to then drop your guard,
right?
Which is the other side of it.
But did you then resume contact?
To a point. Well, with Pauline.
Yeah.
Or with the world.
With Pauline.
With Pauline. Yeah. But
were you in contact before this happened? That's the best part about married friends.
Contact is resumed. Woo! To a point, yeah. I'm not sure she wants to snog me at the moment, but other contacts are good.
Well, now that my 12-year-old daughter doesn't leave the house ever, it's sort of cut down on time, nookie time, the time that we have to be together and feel our forms becoming one. That time has gone way down.
Yes.
Unless you just unless you just decide who cares, and who cares if she knows, who cares if she sees.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, poor Asheen, he's not sleeping in his own bed at the moment, and he's using coronavirus as an excuse that he's worried. So I'm in a spare room, and he's in our bed, and with Pauline.
Look out! You're being replaced.
Yeah. Yes, I know. But
we all are.
But yeah, your other question about artists and where we go from here.
Yeah. So do you have all complex. Negative feelings? Do you have some positive feelings? In the beginning, I had. So you also touched on something that I think is interesting, because I think everybody is getting used to it now, and that makes that's a different dynamic. And also I feel like the kind of usual mediocrity is starting to prevail a bit. Whereas in the beginning, everyone was destabilized, and one of the immediate effects was seeing that the air had cleared up,
Yes, yeah, in terms of the environment, it's a positive. Yeah, which is great. I mean, excuse me, I think it's interesting you say the question being based around the idea, is it all negative or is it all positive? I don't think I've even thought of it like that. I think it's what it is, and
I guess more just a chance, Is it a chance for changing something, and how would you change it? Because I personally think about changing things all the time, and I sit and create little fictional universes that go different ways. Sometimes it's just critical parody of all the horrible things that exist in the world. Sometimes I'm imagining something better, or some, and I often think about things in terms of science fiction, and this whole thing seems like science fiction. So I think oftentimes ordinary people who are not involved in politics see, that don't feel like they have any way that they can change things in the way the world is run. And I think that we see right now, we're seeing the devastating effects of the badly run world.
I think you're spot on. I think what's interesting as well is that, to use an expression I've seen a lot used by arts organisations, they say, think local, act global.
Right.
And I think from one point of view, you've got that period of time and reflection, which has been imposed on everyone. And so a lot of people, like we're doing, you get in contact with old friends. You've also got that time to think maybe about family and friends. And, you may or may not know, but, quite a lot of my family, our family's quite dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And those that are alive, I mean, I've got an older sister who's been social distancing for the last 30 years. You ring her, if you ever ring her, you have to, she screens the calls before she picks up. And so, I mean, I would imagine this would be a walk in the park for her. She'd be like, welcome to my world. So, you talk about creating new dystopian, well, you didn't say dystopian, but new societies or visions of the future, or
utopian
worlds.
I mean, it doesn't have to be this or you. It can.
Yeah.
It
But
can be
I
meh.
suppose I'm constantly writing the same book and trying to right the same wrongs or build bridges that will never be built again to do with my family. And that seems to be every time there's a funeral or a wedding or anything, that's family related, or even on my wife's family side,
Well,
it's like someone pressing on a bruise or on a pain, So
well, that's the thing. I wonder,
yeah.
just because when you look at the kind of the elements that you have at your disposal to change the world, one is your family, your direct family who's in your house, then people
Yes.
you're actually related to by blood that you've gone through your life with, by no choice of your own, but they're there and you're in contact and they know you very well and you know them
or
very
you're
well.
not in contact.
Or you're not, right. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, there's a link there that is
Yes,
somehow
yeah.
old and fundamental, and
Sure.
even if it's not positive. And then you have your neighbors who are right around
Yes.
you. And the problem is that there's so much dysfunction just in those first three layers that
Yes.
how do you get to larger things of neighborhoods, cities, states, countries, and because I get really annoyed by my upstairs neighbors. They really piss me off. It's not petty reasons mostly, but I don't really know. I don't know if I could come to. I kind of want to start a renters association in our building because nobody ever knows anything, and the guys across the hall now have coronavirus or had it, or two of them. And I kind of think that maybe we should all know certain things, what do you do? Like, what should we do? But I know that I would then, by starting an association like that, I would then expose myself to everybody's dumb problems and I'd probably just end up hating them all.
That's true. Absolutely. I mean, just the basic thing of sharing a stairwell. And if you've got a banister rail, is someone disinfecting that banister rail every day? And things like
not
that.
every day. My wife and I have done it, though. You know what my wife did? She took one of our, those flat kind of clothy sponges, put on gloves, Mr. Clean, went out and cleaned all of the door handles or a huge amount of things that people touch in our stairwell. She came back, she washed it and put it back for as the thing that we clean our table with. We had to have a little talk. She threw it away. We threw it away, but I almost thought I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Brilliant. I love it. Maybe that's a cultural difference. You got to celebrate that.
I think it is. No, because Americans can be completely insane on the other side of that's this whole thing calls into question people's notions of hygiene and the way people. I mean, I always thought that all of these people constantly rubbing their hands in hand sanitizer before this happened. I mean, it was really kind of out of control, and it sort of shows that kind of hatred for other people, I find.
It is bonkers, isn't it? And I think you go through, probably a large amount of people went through phases of maybe starting in a kind of crazy way of washing your hands every 10 minutes or something, and then realising they were getting eczema, and then having to use a hand cream to sort their hands out.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it's, I don't know. It's all everything, things become normal, don't they?
Yeah.
But I think moving forward, realistically, and I'm not sure, going back to your original question, I've got an answer in terms of even creatively what's going to happen. I mean, I know from a pragmatic point of view, quite a few people are going to be moving out of the studio I work in because they can't afford they can't access it at the moment, yet they're still expected to pay rent, which has pissed a lot of people off.
Right.
But and I think moving forward, for those people who have got underlying health conditions or just who are worried, until there is a antidote and people have got a vaccine, and even if there is a vaccine, I don't know. I just think it's going to be we live in very interesting times, and I think even travel is going to be I mean, what airlines are
Greatly
still going to
changed.
be running?
Yeah.
Greatly changed. And I think that actually, from a creative point of view, I know we mentioned it, the idea of Total Recall as a film, but the idea of travel and maybe, I don't know, I guess we're going to be seeing a lot more of Ireland and different places in Ireland. And you live in Europe. You know, your country is connected to loads of other countries.
Yeah.
So in terms of needing to fly, you're not going to need to, but even in terms of getting across borders.
Well, if I wanted to see any of my nuclear, is that right? Nuclear, my original family in the United States, I used to go there quite often, you know, and it's a very strange feeling to realize that you might not be able to go back where you come from.
Well, let's say in the future, I mean, that may be the beginning of something creative. You want to go back and see them, and the rules are you have to be quarantined for 2 weeks. This has just happened to my brother-in-law's daughter. He was desperate for her to come back from Canada, from Toronto. They got back, her and her fiance, and they couldn't actually see her parents. She couldn't see her parents for 2 weeks. So they had to rented a house in the countryside, and they've been quarantined there for 2 weeks.
Wow.
So imagine you go on holiday to see your family, and you've only got 3 weeks.
Yeah. And two
off
of them
work
you
or
have
whatever.
to be in.
Two of them you can't physically have contact with them. You're staring out of a window, waving at them in a quarantine house.
That is, that's really something to contemplate. It's funny, you know, because in terms of art and whatnot, I've always been kind of attracted to the concept of alienation and even in different kinds of artistic processes, because so many artistic processes are actually very harmful for your body, you know.
Yes,
I mean,
that's true.
Artists are completely used to wearing respirators or wearing protective gear that a lot of people aren't used to. I mean, people who build things in general, right? Because a lot of the materials are not really healthy, you know, they're dangerous.
Sure.
So I remember when I used to blow glass, wearing face shields and glasses and different things, and dealing with these extreme temperatures that could melt your flesh. There was a kind of appeal in it because it made me feel like an astronaut. And I guess I was probably getting stoned more in those days, and you know, just this kind of sense of remove, like you're Major Tom in the capsule, you know, heading to the moon. And I feel like now we've entered into, if things don't really change, and the way a lot of experts seem to talk about it, it's going to be part of our, you know, the dystopian future was right.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think I sent you that article from The Guardian about
dystopian
the
sci-fi, I mean, was right.
Yeah, about the astronauts who have been quarantined, but now they've gone off to the space station. And I made a joke about, the ultimate in social distancing. Did you get the bit I was talking to you about my friend who's a postman?
No.
So basically, he's moved from Manchester to the Highlands of Scotland, so really rural existence. It's beautiful. His wife's a health visitor. They've got no kids. They've got 2 dogs. He's got an acre of land. You know, it's real the good life, you know, view of the Atlantic. And that was an area where there was no coronavirus. And now they've got coronavirus up there. And you think it's everywhere. You know, there's, besides maybe a few islands in the South Pacific that are tiny, that still take, I don't know, a couple of, 4 or 5 days to access from a small boat.
Well, I guess that's what I hear is it's going to be everywhere. We're just trying to slow it down to save the hospitals, which can't handle it.
Sure. I mean, we should be trying to slow it down anyway, but it's kind of that battle, isn't it, between the technology and the equipment and the staff that we have. I mean,
so what do you think, maybe just in kind of closing, wrapping up, so I wanted to ask you, in terms of thinking locally, because that's what everybody says, would you consider running for government or doing something in your community that, you know, seems to have more of an impact in terms of the way it's run, controlled, you know, how to kind of get some ideas out that reflect more of who you are and what you believe in and what you hope others believe in? Wow,
that's an interesting question, not something I'd ever thought of. I think I don't think I would think in terms of doing something as grand as that, but I would certainly be happy and confident to do some small things for the community, for my immediate community.
It's hard to match those things up, with what the things that you like to do that you're good at, and things that could actually have a benefit. It's not easy.
No, but I mean, I think even like I think about Pauline doing things that are for maybe the kids around here. So she's put teddy bears in the window so they can have this kind of walking teddy bears picnic. So they'll walk around the streets and they'll see teddy bears smiling out of the window, sort of thing. And I put a sign up on a tree today that looked very official, which was a printout from the Taoiseach saying that the Easter Bunny has been given permission to deliver Easter eggs in Ireland. So it looks quite official, but it's kind of a bit silly,
It's propaganda. This is
propaganda.
Conceptual
exactly.
art for children, for 7-year-olds.
Keep smiling. Everything will be all right. Keep calm and carry on. Ignore the coffins.
I do think it's really something to think about, and I think that people like you who who think in a different way than a lot of people, and make lots of connections that other people wouldn't, and that's kind of maybe what's the basis of the art that you do. That there is an application for that in a larger kind of societal sphere. And I don't know. I feel like that we kind of don't have a choice. And I also feel like that the people who the governments that are running our countries are, and I don't know. Ireland seems to be perhaps better off at this. But the one that you're from, the one that I'm from, the UK, the UK and the United States, it's so bad. It's almost, to me, it's like, well, it couldn't be worse. So whatever my daydream fantasies are that, seem like they could never come true, well, maybe they actually do have some kind of value compared to what's actually happening. Because what's happening is so poor. I think going back to the idea of being creative and art, do you even think it has you don't want to say it doesn't have a place. No, it's not that. It's just that in terms of what's going on, you kind of feel like, I think what you did with those, or you were involved with those decathlon respirator kind of hacks, that was fantastic. That was absolutely amazing. And I think things like that, and I don't know, even setting up just a little coffee thing on the street or baking scones. That's what I mean.
Just something that it makes people smile. And I just think that we're a community by the fact that we're all the same species. Rather than it being a case of, well, we're in South Dublin and there's people in North Dublin. And they're doing a thing on Saturday night where at 9:00 they want everyone to shine a light to kind of be part of the community, and I think it might be for the health workers as well.
Have you been doing like clapping and stuff? Because here at 8:00 at night, every night they do it.
No, that's in the UK, but they've done it. They have done it here once, and they also did a thing at 3:00 on one day, which was clap for the children, which was sweet because it was kind of like, well, they're all stuck at home and it's a tough time for them. But I think I watched Newsnight last night, so I think it's a very good news programme on BBC Two, and it was really superb because it was basically saying it's not a level playing field. This doesn't create a level playing field, because if you're poor or you're in a country or in a refugee camp, you're not going to get the same access, and
at all.
You're much more likely to get the virus, and you're not going to have the same healthcare. You're not going to get the same access to clean water, medicine, food. And it's so obvious, even the fact that that's stated, it shouldn't be stated, but we're whatever our situations, we are quite privileged. We've got a little garden here, you've got a roof over your head, you've got we have so much. And I think it's it's kind of funny, isn't it, that the way of locking down is, Netflix is getting hammered, and Zoom, and all these new technological ways of people alleviating their boredom and also touching base with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched a play last night, which was fantastic. One Man, Two Governors, James Corden, the National Theatre, and it was on YouTube, and they're broadcasting it for free. And
Wow.
but I'm just thinking, it's I don't know. It's like a massive open prison.
Yeah.
It is like a J.G. Ballard book.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we're meant to be out of lockdown on Sunday, Easter Sunday, which is
Really?
2 days' time. That's not going to happen. They know that. They've said that. It's going to have to carry on because they want to get the number of transmissions to be less than 1. So I think what will be interesting going forward is, will there be a breaking point for various different communities and different countries where they just go, no, fuck this, we've had enough.
I think you're right. I think that's going to happen. Because it's never going to be. Well, I don't know. It's never going to be certain, but at the same time, the governments want the economy to kick back in also. So there's that. I think there will be. I think it's going to be gray. I think it'll be a point where there's never going to be a kind of certainty that it's going to be safe. And the reinfection, all this stuff. Only time will tell. But that's why I mean that I agree with you that there's something. People are reaching out to old friends. That's what we're doing right now. That everybody's on the net. That's what we're doing. There's all kinds of series and theater and different things that are now possible to see that weren't, just for technology, but now also because of the virus, there's more things put online. And so I just wonder, I feel like, it's funny, just we by coincidence we've been back in touch lately, you and I, and that's kind of why I wanted to start talking to people, old friends, because I feel like there's some kind of magic in old friends, and also because old friends spread out, they're never in the same places, no matter
well, there is, you're right. And I was thinking about writing a letter to a very old friend of mine who I've known since primary school, I've lost touch with, and she actually reached out to me at a shiver, and then I didn't get back in contact with her when I said I would, just because more stuff happened and it was just too much. But I just thought I need to write her a letter, because I'm not just going to phone out the blue. It'll be too weird, I think.
Yeah.
But and I think there's something very personal and quite nice about going old school and writing a letter. But what was I going to say? Yeah, do you know what? I just had a funny thought about one of the kids just walked past. We're going to need to wrap up now, but I just had a creative thought.
Recording.
And I was thinking, because everyone's trying to make funny videos and do various things and entertain people and get them to go viral. And that's all great and it's what it is.
But it seems kind of worthless at the same time.
It's worthless. It is, yeah. It's like a sticking plaster. But then I was thinking, and maybe it's because I'm a bit more, I don't know, I have darker thoughts every now and then. But I was thinking of Spielberg's, was Spielberg, wasn't it, who did Close Encounters?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that thing of the guy building the
mountain out of potatoes and then potatoes.
Yeah, was it in his garden potatoes. Or something, in his backyard?
It's in his living room. Like it starts off as just food, and
in
then
the living room,
and then it's clay, and he has to make this mountain. Yeah.
I think I might go that. I'm going to go that way. That'll be me.
But in what sense?
Might not be that thing. No, I just think I'm going to start making something in the garden that's just going to be like bizarre, and just like, or start digging, or just I think it could be like some sort of mountain range.
Listen,
some sort of mini nature.
No, but it's
like
but
crazy.
Come on, look, if you really look at what artists are engaged in, it's that kind of metaphysical, proto-religious communication. That's what.
Yeah, like
that's
a
what
James
we're doing.
Turrell thing, a Turrell. Install, changing a mountain, or just, I mean, as it is, I repotted a load of plants the other day. It gave me lots of pleasure. And we've got this crazy AstroTurf backyard, which is brilliant for Osh to play, and, mud comes into the house. But I'm like, I want loads of plants out here. I want loads of greenery. I need it, and it's funny, isn't it? It's it's not funny. It's what it is. This has been quite dark, hasn't it, this chat? Sorry.
I don't think so.
Where are the laughs?
I don't think so. We had a lot of laughs, but there's a lot of
good.
real information in between, and I think there's no way you can come up with with real answers yet. I think that's but I think you can have kind of inspirations. I think because what you're pointing out, like in some ways, I can. So some of what you're saying, like about, putting plants into the backyard, or and making a space that's like something really different, or Pauline putting stuffed animals in the windows, or putting stuff up on trees for kids. Some of that can sound, if you're suddenly just thinking politically, which is kind of what I was suggesting, that can sound a little bit, superfluous, but the truth is that right now human interactions have been jilted severely. So when you walk down the street in Paris, everybody's wearing masks now. So how do you communicate at all with masks? You can't nod or smile, or everybody just looks kind of like a psychopath, basically. So
do you know the doctors? I'm gonna have to go in a minute.
I was just gonna say what you were suggesting.
Doctors here. Sorry, go on.
What you were suggesting, with little changes like that, I think there's really something in that. There's something, but it would be interesting, I think, to really think about that and to do something with it, to communicate to other people who are all feeling the same way.
Yeah, rather than doing a great big face mask on the front of my house, which I thought of this morning. Face masks for goldfish. Or a big kind of, the plague, like a black cross on someone's house and a tick on another one. But thank you, Joseph. You stay safe.
Joey, you call me Joey. See,
I know I do. I know.
Call me Joey. I'm on this is for friends. So
I know.
I'm Joey.
Well, thank you, Joey.
Talk to other people who don't know how to say Joey.
I was holding off on doing this, but now you got me on it. You can't shut me up.
That's right.
No, thanks. Stay safe. Stay home.
Yeah, you too. Say hi to Pauline and to Osh, and
absolutely. As they say, I'll see you on the other side.
So that was Jason Minsky, conceptual artist, father, husband, old friend who I've come thankfully back into orbit with. You can check out his truly impressive body of work, installations, videos, photos, and more at minskyart.com. Tune in next time when I speak with my good old friend Ha Ly, currently living in Nha Trang, Vietnam, who with her husband, John, just recently opened a bakery cafe in their city in Vietnam, just as the coronavirus pandemic really hit. So we're going back to Vietnam, folks. See you then.
Out of the hospital into the weather, my girl looked good, I didn't know what to tell her. The doctors, they told me it's just for one day, and then I'd see it all slipping away.
Throw it up, falling down, turn green, and skip town.
But Sherry, are you okay? You don't look so good. Sherry, I'm gonna take care of you.